First, the United Kingdom says no to the right wing with a massive victory for the Labour Party in one of the biggest upsets in UK political history. Then, France says, hold my champagne as the left and center-left parties unite to hand Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party a massive and unexpected loss. The polls had it wrong. The pundits had it wrong. Sound familiar? Will America follow suit? Defy the naysayers and choose democracy this November. Oh, and of course, MAGA is already calling those elections rigged as well. Speaking of the United States, President Biden is firing back at critics and making it clear that he is not going anywhere. The president has been delivering speeches and chatting with voters in swing states across the country, holding more than 18 events in 10 days. Biden sent a letter to House Democrats letting them know that he is ready to fight on and called into Morning Joe to push back against his critics and affirm that he is in it to win it. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has not been seen in public in over 10 days and has just been hanging at his golf club, posting literal QAnon memes and whining about Fox News's coverage of him. Trump is desperately trying to run away from the dangerous Project 2025 agenda as more Americans begin to hear about his dangerous plans. And the U.S. economy continues to grow with more jobs, and Americans just set records for holiday travel over July 4th. Brett and Jordy are here to discuss it all on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Jordy, just me and you today, man. How you feeling?
Let's go. It feels like the adults are out of the room and we're ready to go here.
This Brett, is going to be MeidasTouch Podcast unfiltered without, right? This is going to be quite a historic show here, I think.
I'm really excited. Ben, we miss you, big bro, but get some rest. Get some rest. We got you over here. No, just messing around. B, hold your champagne. I've never heard of that one before, but I really like it, and I think I'm going to start to use that going forward. Hold your champagne.
You know what I was going? I was going to hold my beer.
Hold my beer. To hold my champagne.
I figured in France, it's got my first draft was hold my croissant. I thought
champagne way better.
I thought croissant may be slightly offensive, so I thought I'd move over to champagne. I thought that bridged the gap, but then I said croissant here, so all that editing is for naught. But you know what they say, Jordy, writing is rewriting. And what I see about writing is that while all of this is happening, Trump is just out there posting these QAnon memes, taking to Truth Social. And I've seen this narrative in the media where they're trying to frame Trump's actions these days as, oh, he's being so restrained after the debate. He is really being so much more statesmanlike. Just because he's not going out there and literally not doing anything, Donald Trump has not been seen literally in over 10 days. He just decided that he was going to hold his first event on Tuesday at his own golf course in Miami. That's how far that he is currently willing to travel and willing to pay for other venues and whatnot. Trump has literally been posting, as I said, QAnon memes. And I just want to make this clear at the top of the show because this really says so much about the candidates here. Donald Trump here posting this QAnon account. It's called Spiritual Street Fighter 17. And this meme that says, we stand united with DJT. Now, you go and you click on that individual's profile. Their profile on Truth Social says, 1776 again. I'm a proud American, born and raised, woman for Trump. I believe in Q, the Great Awakening, and holding the line. Where we go one, we go all. Literal QAnon memes posting a person who is supporting a literal death cult. Do you remember back in the 2016 campaign, Jordy, when QAnon was a big story, the rise of QAnon, the threat of QAnon, all the stuff around Pizzagate and the shooting up of Comet Ping Pong and all the damage that came from that. And rightfully so, back then, the media was at least calling out the threat of QAnon. Now, Donald Trump consistently, like almost every single day, is reposting literal QAnon accounts whose goal is to have televised public executions of Donald Trump's enemies and the deep state, as they call it. I mean, this is really sick stuff on a new level, right, Jay?
Absolutely. MB, you think this would at least warrant a couple op-eds calling for Donald Trump to drop out of the race. But no, crickets from corporate media over and over again. It's a scary, scary time when the leader of an entire political party in this country can just retweet QAnon cult memes over and over and over again and go completely unchecked. Bizarre and scary.
And here's the thing about the coverage lately that I have seen, and it's something that I said, Jordy, on the previous podcast that we did. Of course, they should be covering stories about President Biden. It's a very important story. What may or may not happen with President Biden, the debate, sure, it's important. What I have an issue with is the proportionality of the reporting. There was something like, over in the week since the debate, more than 200 pieces put in the New York Times about the debate. I mean, a little excessive. Now, if you told me, well, Brett, there are also 200 pieces about Project 2025 and posting QAnon and Trump posting QAnon memes and all this stuff, I'd say, okay, they just post a lot. They write a lot of articles. Okay, I got it. Point taken. That's simply not the case. Sure, they have mentioned these other topics, but writing a couple articles about something compared to 200 plus in a week on a single topic, I think you're putting your finger on the scale a bit there. And at that point, you're not simply reporting the news. You are actively trying to drive the news. Like, here's some other stuff that they're not speaking about. Here's some other posts that Donald Trump has posted in the past few days. We have, "We the people support Trump" from Patriot Point Man, one of these memes. "Spiritual Street Fighter 17 again." This is that QAnon account again. A meme that says it's time to totally obliterate the criminal syndicate, and has a picture. It's kind of covered up. It appears to be the United States Capitol. And this is what we are seeing right now. It is truly, truly, truly a baffling thing. But meanwhile, we are seeing far and wide across the world democracy prevail. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the interesting things. Despite all the bluster of Trump, despite all the thoughts of the pundits and the polls, we are seeing a complete repudiation of that exact ideology across the board. And by the way, we've seen it here in America too, in these special elections. We've seen it here in America in the midterms when there was all this talk about a red wave. And now we are seeing it overseas. We saw first in the United Kingdom, the Labour Party defeated the Conservative Party, who was in office had control for about 14 or so years. The Labour MP Keir Starmer is now the Prime Minister. And how about that, by the way, Jordy? A transition process that doesn't take months, that doesn't allow time for, I don't know, some sort of insurrection attempt in the meantime. It's
something like a good idea.
Something to think about. Maybe they have, they've been doing this for a while. Perhaps it's something to think about. I'm just saying. One of the things I was really amazed with there, though, was the speeches, the concession speeches after, the victory speeches after. To me, that's what this network is all about. It's getting back to that civility and being able to believe in democracy and the will of the people. And, what we saw there with that transfer of power, I'm sure a lot of you, and we posted it on our social media as well, you can check it out, seeing that transfer of power between the previous party in power and the Labour Party, it really speaks volumes. And, quite frankly, it makes the UK government, it makes them look like the adults in the room, and we are just like the crazy, I don't even know what to call us. But meanwhile, then we had France, and for months, the polls, the pundits have been saying that there was going to be a right-wing takeover in France. They were saying Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party, this neo-fascist party, was going to glide to power, easy, no issues whatsoever. What happened? Their pro-democracy forces on the left and the center left, they joined forces. They created a new party called the New Popular Front, and they took on Marine Le Pen's party. Le Pen's party, the National Rally Party, ended up coming in third place. It was a complete upset. One of the greatest upsets, quite frankly, in French history. Just a absolute stunning defeat. And once again, now it's up to America to decide. Are we going to follow in the suit of the UK, of France, or are we going to go different? Now, I think it's heartwarming to see these images that are coming out of France of all the celebrations. There was actually one I saw yesterday too, which was quite funny. It was a side-by-side of the split screen of the Le Pen people and of the people in the new Popular Front. And the reactions were quite different. But here were the celebrations on the ground in Paris after the results were announced. And for those listening, you don't have to worry about what they're saying. Don't worry, but just know it's a lot of very happy people. Now, the next clip I want to.
But Brett, how could the polls get it wrong? It's almost, how could they get it so wrong? Could it be, Brett? It's almost as if reporting on panic polls generates clicks and ratings. Could that be a theory here? Because that sure did look like a lot of people that were definitely giving a different view than what the polls had indicated over there.
And here's the thing, Jordy. Throughout history, fascist movements, autocratic movements have been able to attain power with small numbers because they are able to exploit divisions in the majority. I mean, if you go back to Nazi Germany, and if you look at MAGA, right, you have a number of about 30% or so of people who firmly support, those ideologies at those times. Now, one of the things we could learn, though, from France is the power of pro-democracy forces uniting together to see a greater threat, to see that this is bigger than any one individual, but this is about our democracy and about our rights. And I hope that is additionally the takeaway of this, and that Americans start to get serious about the threats that lie before us. This next clip I'm going to play is in French, so I'll prep the listeners for what Marine Le Pen says here. But Marine Le Pen says, she brags that her policies are the same policies as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Here's the clip.
Parce que l'air de rien, les grandes lignes politiques que je défends sont les grandes lignes qui sont défendues, effectivement, par M. Trump. C'est défendu par M. Poutine.
They're telling you who they are, so let's believe them. MAGA, of course, in total disarray, Jordy, because they thought that they were going to have this big victory overseas. Remember, this autocratic movement, it's a global movement at the end of the day. And here were some of the select voices that I picked up here.
Cue the conspiracies, B.
David Sachs. Oh, my God. For David Sachs, France shows that no election is certain. Macron and the far left used every trick in the book to deny Marine Le Pen her victory. Republicans shouldn't get complacent. Cat Turd, a thought leader in the Republican Party, says they cheated in France just like here. The fascist account End Wokeness said, this is insane. Macron's party colluded with the far left socialists in order to block a Le Pen win. 200 candidates dropped out last week, coalescing against the far right. Well, the coup just played off. The socialists just won first place. It looks like France will not be saved. Yawn, yawn. Just tiring.
The biggest whiners of all time, Brett. And that's why, I give it to the American people by and large that they reject that type of sentiment and that type of feeling and that type of just loserness that you see from the MAGA, right? When you see from the cat turds, the End Wokeness, the Saxes, it's just like, you're just the biggest whiners of all time. And the American people don't like that. You also dabble and deal in exclusively and nothing else other than conspiracies. It's weird. And the American people, by and large, don't want to align themselves with you or your authoritarian rule. Absolutely not.
And we need to make those stakes clear here and every day and stay focused on those specific stakes. President Biden today, moving on to the United States, he was pushing back at all this various media coverage against folks telling him that he should drop out. President Biden posted this morning, he said, "This morning, I sent a letter to my fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill. In it, I shared my thoughts about this moment in our campaign. It's time to come together, move forward as a unified party, and defeat Donald Trump. And I think seeing what happened overseas, that idea of unifying has never been more important. That was their key to victory there. I'll read you at least, maybe I'll read the whole thing. I'll see how it goes. I'll read you at least a part of the letter that Biden sent to congressional Democrats. He says, fellow Democrats, now that you have returned from July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I'm firmly committed to staying in the race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump. I've had extensive conversations with the leadership of the party, elected officials, rank and file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over these past 10 days or so. I've heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in the election. I am not blind to them. Believe me, I know better than anyone the responsibility and the burden the nominee of our party carries. I carried it in 2020 when the fate of our nation was at stake. I also know that the concerns come from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president, and I've been moved by the expressions of affection for me and so many who have known me and supported me over the course of my public life. I am been grateful for the rock solid, steadfast support from so many elected Democrats in Congress and all across the country, and taken great strength from the resolve and determination I have seen from so many voters and grassroots supporters, even in the hardest of weeks. I can respond to all of this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I would not be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. So that was his message. You could read it. It goes on for another, page and a half. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it might take up a bit of the podcast, but I found it to be an impactful letter, pushing back on everything that's going on. And then President Biden also, and everyone's telling him, get out there, right? You got to get out there. You got to talk to voters. And he's held something now like 18 plus events over the past 10 days. Like he's been getting out there. He's been in Pennsylvania. He's been in Wisconsin. He's been all over the place in various swing states. President Biden also today called in to Morning Joe to make his case as well. And I thought President Biden sounded incredibly forceful as well in this phone call. And I'll play you a clip. Here's the first clip where he says, the bottom line, not going anywhere.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
The next clip, President Biden mocks Donald Trump. He says that Trump is a liar and says that Trump has just been on his golf cart for the past 10 days hanging with his wealthy friends.
He's just a liar, and he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in the golf cart for 10 days, was down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on to the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that, and I'm confident that's where the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think.
President Biden calling Trump a pathological liar and bringing up some of the crazy things that Trump said in the debate and has said recently and his lies. And it was just like, what the hell are we even talking about here? Like, are you listening to this individual?
He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th. And he says, they claim he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing? This is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
President Biden was asked a question by Mika on Morning Joe, asking him, how could you assure the American people that that night during the debate was just a fluke? Here was his answer.
How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? age wasn't, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieved student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think I had a significant run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a physical, a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day. Try sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it. I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
President Biden talking about all the events that he's done since the debate, including the very night of the debate when he was out at 2 a.m.
The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I'm talking to large crowds. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania, and look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done except deny and lie about what he's for?
President Biden saying that he has the instincts and he knows that he is the one to defeat Donald Trump, and that the naysayers have been proven wrong time and time again.
You may remember, I was one of the few people out there publicly saying before the 2022 election, there will be no red wave. There will be no red wave. Because I've been all over the country. I didn't believe it at all. And then in 2023, the key elections, I went into those races. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. And I said we were going to win. Look, we won those. So, Joe, it wasn't just that it didn't happen. I was predicting beforehand it would not happen. Because I've got a pretty good political instinct and eye. And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter.
President Biden was also speaking about this constant narrative that there's a rightward shift in the United States. And he's saying, like, where do you get that from? And look at France and look at the United Kingdom and look what's happening and look at what Trump says that he is going to do.
By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway, but have you ever, he's such a liar. This guy everybody knows what they're planning to do. And now he's saying, no. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in a permanent way. This guy is going to make sure that he exacts revenge. This guy's going to destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court and he's going to use its past, the 2025 agenda. This guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for.
And a big theme was Biden, raising the stakes of this election and continuing to speak about all the things that Trump keeps running away from. If your policies are so popular, why do you keep running away from all of these things? Here's another moment like that.
Think of the things he lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. He said that he's going to, those 10% universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying it's going to drive an average $2,500 per person. Only jobs we created for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs and back from COVID. Give me a break. That's what he said at the convention. At the debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything except me.
I think these are great. I think this is actually great of President Biden to be out there and getting this message across. I'll play one more, Jay, and then I want to get your thoughts. But at the end, President Biden basically concludes with making the comparison to the elections that we've just seen overseas and how Americans will also reject the extremism the same way that they have rejected extremism abroad.
And so this guy's going to have to start to answer for what he did. I'm not letting up, Joe. I am not letting up a little bit. And by the way, France registered, look, you talk about Europe. France rejected extremism. Democrats will reject it here as well. Trump, and this is a guy who is an extreme candidate. I can't think of a candidate in my lifetime that's been more extreme. He makes George Wallace look like a patriot.
And Jordy, what did you think overall about the call onto morning jail?
It's fantastic. It was Biden at his best again, and honestly, he should do this more often. It's funny. I sort of have two conflicting thoughts at the same time. I think he should almost do this weekly, call into Morning Joe weekly, because that's
right.
that's what the American people want to hear. They want to hear why he is so great for this country versus why the other guy is so dangerous. And he did a great job today. And I think a weekly call would do a lot of good. At the same time, let's be clear, there's nothing President Biden can do right now to appease the media coup that we're all witnessing. Like, he can do a cartwheel on stage while solving a Rubik's Cube, and it will just never be enough for some of these media members. Even when he goes on Morning Joe today, Brett, and has as good of a performance as he had, suddenly, because he's defending his record, he's now acting Trumpian. I saw that take from a lot of members of the media. So let me get this straight. You want him to go on live TV to defend his record, but not like that. He didn't do it the right way today. Well, that's weird. And so I'm speaking to those corporate media members. Like, just be honest. Say that you're dug in your position and that your ego just won't allow you to change your mind on the topic. But just do everyone a favor and don't bring your degree to a dogfight, because I'm no longer trying to entertain this intellectual debate about the ticket. The ticket is the ticket. You could get behind it or you could get the hell out of the way.
I like that line, Jordy. But the degree or the dogfight is good stuff. And like I've said on the show, it's an important discussion to have. I think it's a discussion that's great. And I think it's great that Democrats could be having these hard conversations. The thing that has disturbed me in recent days, to say the least, is, like I said earlier, that proportionality of the stories, the putting so much emphasis on certain stories, and kind of just now they're like making up stuff a lot. And then they have to retract their stories. Like yesterday, they did a report that Ted Lieu was calling for Biden to drop out. Not true at all. They're just rushing to get at these stories. I saw Axios did a story that was about the advanced team prep for Biden for events. And you have to, they posted with a bunch of kind of sirens and say, Biden needs to have pictures of all the locations in the event before he goes in. And we got an exclusive copy of the entrances, the exits, everything that they show the president before he gets in and that a security team prepares for. And it's not until you get to the very bottom line of the story that says that this is done for literally every president ever. And so that's the kind of putting your finger on the scale kind of storytelling, if you want to say it in a nice way, that it really disturbs me. But I think it's important to have the discussions, have those conversations. I think that's fine. But I think once you cross over into really trying to put your finger on the scale of what's happening, like we are seeing with these major media networks, it is quite disturbing to see how quick they are to cave into anti-democratic forces.
Absolutely. And look, this is really where my frustrations start to come from too. It's like, okay, he went out in North Carolina, President Biden said he's running. He went out in Wisconsin, said he's running. He went out and met with the governors. The governors left the meeting. They all had his back. The VP has his back. He's tweeted out that he's staying in the race. He's now released a statement to Congress saying he's staying, the congressional Democrats saying he's staying in the race. So why continue to perpetuate this narrative as if he may or may not drop out? That's why it's been so frustrating for me as the weeks and days go on, versus just understanding the moment and understanding what we need to do to defeat Donald Trump. Because right now, all you're doing by continuing to engage with this fantasy is you're helping Donald Trump. Period. Full stop. One of the most frustrating things, and I know we got to hit the break soon, Brett, but one of the most frustrating things about these last few days for me personally has been like the most privileged among us casting stones from their penthouses, trying to tell the electorate that they know what's best for them. And look, I'm sure a lot of it is in good faith, but I just hope these folks are having conversations with the party base who seem to feel much differently than they think. Biden said it. He's not going anywhere. It's a good thing. He remains the best candidate to take on Donald Trump. And as far as this election is concerned, it doesn't get stronger than a Biden-Harris ticket. Nothing else even comes close. And so one silver lining, I guess, that we can all take from this, Brett, and I saw you had tweeted this out the other day, at least folks are now starting to realize just how big of an asset VP Harris is. And another silver lining is folks are engaged again. But once again, it's time to get behind the ticket or get out of the way, because anything else at this point helps Trump, period.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, if you would want it to be Kamala, Vice President Harris, I think she is amazing. The great thing is she's a very effective, great VP, and her role as VP is to fill in case there are ever any issues. So to me, you get the best of both worlds. I'm happy that Vice President Harris is finally getting a moment, quite frankly, and getting the respect that she deserves. And I want to play a clip from her at the Essence Festival later in the show. And before we go to break, though, I just want to also show, if I could find it, this Chuck Todd tweet, which to me also just totally misses the message. Chuck Todd says Biden's anger at, quote, elites is a bit misplaced. Without the elites, he would have had a serious primary foe. Without the elites, no labels effort would have made a compelling would have had a compelling ticket. Arguably, it's the elites who put too much faith in Biden and got the Dems in this position. No labels were the elites, and folks did try to challenge Biden. The reason that they got so much backlash and did not make it was not because of some big conspiracy, but was quite frankly that voters didn't want it. The voters said no to that. The voters rejected the challenges from Dean Phillips or RFK or all the other people who were out there. They rejected it. If there was an appetite for that, and Dean Phillips' whole thing was running on Biden's age, then there would have been votes for that, and people would have been like, oh crap, there's this guy. But that just wasn't the case. Like, I'm sorry. I want to talk about President Biden's schedule. I want to talk about President Biden's visit to a church in Philadelphia and compare it to Donald Trump's disgraceful visit to a quote unquote black church in Detroit. I want to show you Kamala Harris. I want to talk a little bit about Project 2025 and more. We'll be right back after this. Don't touch a thing.
As many of you may know, I just got married and I plan on expanding my family. With more responsibilities stacking up, I want to make sure my family will have the protection that fits our needs. Now, I'm grateful that I have Policy Genius by my side. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. That's why I love it. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection that your family needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. So please get the peace of mind that you need by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/Meidas or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Meidas. One more time, go to policygenius.com/Meidas, and I think you'll see why I trust Policy Genius. policygenius.com/Meidas.
Let's take a quick break to talk about our next sponsor, ZBiotics. If you're like me, you probably skipped a workout because of drinks the night before. Look, it happens. But if you're committed to your healthy routine, you need ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut, where you need it most. Just remember to drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Recently, I was celebrating my anniversary, and I knew my wife and I were going to enjoy a lovely night of drinking at a local winery as instructed. I drank a bottle of ZBiotics before any alcohol, and I was amazed at how good I felt the next day. Give ZBiotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/Meidas to get 15% off your first order when you use code Meidas at checkout. That's MEIDAS. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Meidas and use the code Meidas, MEIDAS, at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode.
Let's go. Shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors, y'all. Links are in the description of the YouTube and the audio. Use the codes. Let them know we sent you. I love Policy Genius on such like a personal level because it is that impactful. Like it like really affects families. And so I'm happy, so happy they're genuinely a sponsor of the show because it is very helpful. And I know a lot of Meidas Mighty who actually have used Policy Genius from watching the show. So definitely check them out. They've been fantastic sponsor of ours. ZBiotics, I think I mentioned this last week. They're new, but they're also old. They were one of our first sponsors on the MeidasTouch podcast when we first started. They came back around. So show them some love, especially if you like to indulge in a beverage here or there. It's incredibly effective and helpful for making sure you're feeling good that next day after drinks. So click the links. They're fabulous. Brett, how you doing?
I gotta love it, Jordy, and great job getting those deals for the Meidas Mighty. All the links are always in the description of our YouTube videos or our podcast, so you could check them out there. I also want to say to check out, a variety of the YouTube channels across the MeidasTouch network. We got Harry Littman's Talking Feds channel here directly from a former federal prosecutor, of course, Adam Mockler, our great Gen Z correspondent. Go and subscribe to him if you haven't yet. Tennessee Brando doing an incredible job. His channel is growing like crazy. True Crime, MTN, for all the legal news that do not have to do with the political world. And of course, the new Michael Cohen YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show on YouTube. You could check those all out. Jordy, now I want to talk about this President Biden's schedule. President Biden, people have been saying, get out there, shake some hands. You got to get out there. You got to show the people that you still got it. And to his credit, he has been packing his schedule. Here's just a brief list of the Biden appearances going up to the July 5th. And you could see here that these are a ton of experiences for those watching.
Wow.
Hyatt event in Atlanta, Waffle House in Atlanta, campaign event in North Carolina, remarks in New York, a few campaign events across New York and New Jersey, remarks on the immunity ruling, events in Virginia, meeting with them governors, Wisconsin. And this weekend, he was, of course, going across Philadelphia. He's really been hitting the trail. Now, they also just announced some more events by President Biden in the next week or so. More travel announced, remarks commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act in Austin, Texas. On the 16th, he's going to be giving remarks at the NAACP's National Convention in Vegas, and remarks at the Unidos U.S. Annual Conference in Las Vegas as well on the 17th. This week, President Biden is going to be hosting world leaders at a NATO summit that the United States is hosting. That should be a big moment for our allies, who I'm sure themselves have their own concerns about things going on in the world. But hey, maybe President Biden will be able to chat with them, say like, "Hey, good job overseas. Got any tips for us over here?"
Right. I'm 31 and I don't even like to do like long weekends anymore somewhere because I just get so tired. So seeing that extensive schedule, it's pretty reassuring to me.
It's pretty exhausting to me to look at, even quite frankly. And by the way, remember Trump. For all the talk about the schedules and whatever, Trump would work, I think it was reported like 3 hours a day. Right. He would send out those, his scheduling that his White House would send out would be like, he's taking lots of meetings and doing lots of things. And he would just mark the whole day with executive time, which meant that he was not doing anything. But anyway, President Biden, I think one of the things that he said really reassured him was going out and speaking to voters firsthand. And he did that in a big way in Pennsylvania. First, I want to show you his visit to Mount Airy Church of God in Christ in Philadelphia. Compare this to Donald Trump's visit to a black church in Detroit, which he ended up packing with a bunch of kind of MAGA supporters. So first, let me bring up this picture so you could see the difference in the audiences of each event. I think is important to see that Donald Trump's is a scam and that President Biden's is actual real support from the black community. Here is this picture right here, which says it all. On the right, you have Trump's event, and you literally see just all the white Trump supporters who were wearing MAGA hats and red and were brought in. He basically rented out the space from this church, which, by the way, has been embroiled in a lot of its own kind of legal drama. That pastor who had sold it to him, a much different view than what we saw at the Biden event. And I'll play you some, B-roll right now also of the crowd at Biden's event in Philadelphia, just so you get a sense of it. I mean, this is, joyful, real people, real supporters, none of that BS, none of that gaslighting that Trump does at any of his events. And I listened to the sermons and what people were saying. It was so hopeful, and it was about positivity. And it was about love thy neighbor, look over to the person next to you. It's such a contrast to the stuff that we hear in a lot of these Trump speeches and all of these Trump speeches, which are so negative, no matter where he is. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? President Biden gave some great words at this church. I'm going to take just one portion of Biden's speech. Like literally, I'm not even going to take a bunch of different areas. Let me take this one portion of Biden's speech, which I thought was powerful. Let me contrast that with the moments of Donald Trump, his way of that he feels like he should be courting black voters. This was the compilation that I put together.
I've always felt the power of your faith in good times and in tough times. The fact is, the scripture says, all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Our purpose is to serve others. That's our purpose. To know everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. To know faith without works is dead.
And then I got indicted a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against. And they actually viewed me as I'm being discriminated against. It's been pretty amazing.
We're all called to be doers of the world. In this nation, that means keeping our eyes on the North Star, the very idea of America, that we're all created equal in the image of God and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect our entire lives.
We've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. They do shirts and they sell them for $19 a piece.
We've never fully lived up to that, but we've never fully walked away from it either. And that's because of you and generations before you who led the church from slavery to freedom. Always praying, always believing that joy cometh in the morning. You've never given up.
I won't say it because I don't like using the word bullshit in front of these beautiful children. So I won't say it. I will not say it. But this thing allows millions of people.
In my life, and as your president, I've tried to walk my faith. To get us through the pandemic that claimed 1 million loved ones and left 8 million people with an empty chair at dinner or breakfast because of someone they lost. To ensure that the economy has the lowest black unemployment and more black small businesses in decades. To rebuild and ensure black America has a peace of mind that comes with health care for everybody.
Thank you very much. That's where I like those teeth. I want to find out where you did. I got to get my teeth like that.
To ensure you can follow your dreams without the burden of student debt. To make housing affordable. Help more black families build wealth and pass it on to future generations. To keep our communities safe by getting weapons of war off our streets. To give hate no safe harbor.
These lights are so bright in my eyes that I can't see too many people out there. But I can only see the black ones. I can't see any white ones, you see?
While there are those who want to erase history, Kamala and I want to make it. Because black history is American history.
Would you rather have the black president or the white president who got $1.7 billion off the price? I think they want the white guy right now.
Of course, there's more to do to deliver jobs and justice. There's more to do. But above all, we need to protect our rights, the rights of all Americans, to make sure democracy works for you. Folks, I know with every fiber of my being, I know I won't look like I'm 40 years old, but I've been around a little bit. The Bishop and I were talking about that. It's Heck turned 40. Well, all kidding aside, you know, I've been doing this a long time. And I, honest to God, have never been more optimistic about America's future if we stick together. I really mean it.
At the end there was a video of Trump hawking his very expensive sneakers that he said that him and Fox bragged about. That's why black voters will vote for him. I mean, the whole thing is so offensive. To quote President Biden from his interview with Morning Joe this morning, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? You could watch that and it's even a contest. This is even a close call. Give me to quote Biden again. Give me a break, right? Give me a break. And like I said, that was one moment of Biden's speech, and I thought that comparison and that contrast was powerful. And for those asking, yes, it is. It's on our social media. It's on our Twitter account. It's on our Instagram, our TikTok, our Facebook, all that. So
all at MeidasTouch.
You can check it and find all at MeidasTouch. Follow. Make sure you can share that video.
Jarring, that was a great video. I mean, I know your editing skills are very good, but that seemed like a very simple. Just here's President Biden speaking. Here's Donald Trump speaking. I mean, quite literally, like drastically different speeches.
Very simple edit. I will say. President Biden spoke about other issues too, and you see in the contrast just the difference in values that these people have. President Biden was out there and he was talking about how important it is to bring back dignity again. And I wanted to show you that moment because it was particularly powerful, but from a different moment in that speech.
I believe when I ran the first time for president, I said something basic. I said we have to bring back dignity and hope in America. Number one. Number two, we have to give working class and middle class people like the family I came from a shot and build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And thirdly, we must unite America again. That's my goal. That's what we're going to do. God bless you all.
I want to show you also Bishop Felton at that church who came out to bat for President Biden and was asking a question that I think is on a lot of folks' minds, to be honest.
Let's understand something. I don't know why it is that you want to make an issue of the president and his condition with stammering and not being able at certain times to bring forth words, while another person lies fluently and you never challenged his lies.
It's just a much different event and a much different reaction than the events that we've seen Donald Trump hold, where everything that he does is a complete scam. And I think after all this, as President Biden powers through, all the controversies, and I would say this: nobody knows what's going to happen ultimately. Nobody knows what decisions will affect what. Nobody here is psychic. But I think it's important that no matter what, that we're all there defending democracy, and that we try not to consistently tear each other down because the stakes are just too damn high, quite frankly. And I think all of us need to acknowledge that at minimum. I saw a post from the account Angry Staffer, which is I think it was like a staffer in the Trump administration who would like post messages anonymously. This is what he had to say, and I thought it was a good thought, good level-headed thought on kind of what's happening right now. He said, "I think everyone needs to take a step back, breathe, and think about the reality we're in. We're all on the same side here. We all have the same goal. Yes, we may have different ideas for how to get there, but we all want the same thing. Trumpism has to be defeated. Project 2025 can't be allowed anywhere near the corridors of power. We have to stop fighting amongst ourselves and keep our eyes on the prize. If Biden stays in the race, as it appears he will, he can and will beat Donald Trump again with our help. If Biden decides to leave the race, Kamala Harris can and will beat Donald Trump with our help. The situation is politically complicated, but it's also fundamentally very easy. Our job doesn't change. Our goals don't change. We're going to follow the UK. We're going to follow France. We're going to defeat authoritarianism." I think that is the perfect tone, and I would say probably echoes, my views 99, if not 100%. And speaking of Kamala Harris, she was at the Essence Festival over the weekend, speaking in front of a packed house, got like a rock star welcome. I should have a picture of it. I want to pull up just to show you how big this crowd was when VP Harris was speaking. And I want to show you a bit of her speech as well. When she was speaking, she was talking about the media kind of disregarding the true threats, and Vice President Harris was making clear the threats to our country and that they need to be paid attention to.
Sadly, the press has not been covering it as much as they should in proportion to the seriousness of what just happened, when the United States Supreme Court essentially told this individual who has been convicted of 34 felonies that he will be immune from essentially the activity he has told us he is prepared to engage in if he gets back into the White House. Understand what we all know. In 122 days, we each have the power to decide what kind of country we want to live in. Understand what we know. When there has been a full-on intentional attack against hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. When I talk about the family that raised me, yes, they took me in a stroller as they were marching and shouting for justice, knowing that justice will not be achieved unless we are prepared to march and shout and fight for it. And one of the ways we do that is through our vote.
Like I said, I am glad that there is a renewed spotlight on Vice President Kamala Harris. I think she is an incredibly effective communicator, and she's quite frankly been doing this the entire presidency, and it just like these things haven't been picked up on. And one of the weird kind of silver linings thing that we mentioned earlier on the show is that because the press is just hoping now that Biden stumbles and that it's a disaster and that everyone continues to cause chaos and turn on each other, they're covering all the events now, at least a lot more of them, not all of them, but they're covering a lot more of them. So at least folks are being able to see this stuff for themselves now in more ways. At least Vice President Harris is actually getting to be seen speaking to the American people. At least Biden's speeches in full and not in these clipped, deceptive clips are being seen by people. And I just think that's important. Now,
I think it's brought out, Brett, to your point exactly. I think this has brought out like another energy from President Biden, another level of energy from VP Harris, another level of energy, frankly, from the electorate, who is like all in, pot committed. We're going with this, and we're going to win. That's the mentality that we need as we sprint through November right now, is everybody's eyes on the prize and let's do this damn thing. And so that's been another reassuring thing about this moment.
Yeah, I think, I think Biden, I think VP Harris, I think voters, I think folks are really starting to, it's a big wake up call in a lot of ways. And I think folks are seeing this as very much a do or die moment. And so, I think despite what anybody, has contrasting beliefs, and hey, we have hosts on our own network who don't agree with us. That's fine. People are allowed to have their own opinions. Like I don't require that everybody share the opinions of us. And if you agree with us 100% of the time, maybe that's not a good thing, right? Disagreement is healthy. Disagreement is good. But I think we all need to continue to commit ourselves to fighting for democracy, no matter where the chips may fall. Some of the things that the media doesn't quite show because they're more behind the scenes moments, although they certainly demand that Biden does this, and he does do it everywhere he goes. Biden's just shaking hands with voters, Biden having these interactions with voters. And you could tell that was a big calculus of Biden saying why he was staying in, that I met with voters. I've seen their enthusiasm firsthand. So don't gaslight me. I've seen the actual base of our party, and the base of our party are not Democratic big money donors. They're not pundits, and they're not New York Times reporters. They are the people on the ground in the towns and the cities that I shake hands with at these events. So here's President Biden in Pennsylvania, has shaken some hands well after giving his speech in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Here's some more pictures of folks in Harrisburg showing their support. And I think this show of support by the true grassroots of that party, I know it's got to be very meaningful to Biden. And I think it should send a message to other folks. If that base of the party is behind him, I think you need to take their feelings into account, and you can't push them aside. That's all I'm really going to say about that. I want to talk to you because it's very important that we stay laser focused on the threats to the country, that we stay very focused on the data, that we stay very focused on the issues and not the gossip. That's what I want to make sure that this show remains a place for. The issues, not the gossip. So I want to speak a bit more about Project 2025. I want to speak a bit more about some of these deceptive groups that are trying to destroy our climate with Donald Trump's help. And this is some really shady stuff that our research has uncovered. And it's very important that you hear about this. And I want to tell you more about positive news about the economy that has been going underreported as a result of the constant talking about the gossip. So we're going to get to all that and more. This is our last break, so make sure you do not go anywhere.
I've been trying to lead a heart-healthy lifestyle, but finding the energy to keep up with healthy changes like getting my steps in, it's been an uphill battle. We often think living a more heart-healthy life means making big, unsustainable changes. Well, with SuperBeets Heart Chews, you can get daily blood pressure support in just 2 tasty chews a day. And they even promote heart-healthy energy without the stimulants. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in SuperBeets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. My energy levels are higher than ever. Now, without typical dips from coffee and energy drinks, it's fantastic to support my blood pressure and still have the energy for more physical activity. It's a win-win. Double your potential with SuperBeets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of SuperBeets Heart Chews on all bundles and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and use code MIDAS. That's getsuperbeets.com, code MIDAS.
Bond Charge, it's a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life in every way. Founded on science and inspired by nature, all Bond Charge products adopt ancestral ways of living in our modern day world. Their extensive range of premium wellness products help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, reduce inflammation. The list is endless, from blue light glasses and infrared saunas to red light therapy to EMF management and circadian-friendly lighting. Bond Charge products help you naturally address the issues of our modern-day way of life effortlessly and with maximum impact. My new favorite product from Bond Charge is their red light face mask. I've been noticing some wrinkles and blemishes recently, but then I started to use the Bond Charge red light face mask, and I have to say, this is amazing. Red light therapy has been reviewed in over 4,000 peer-reviewed studies, with 400 plus being double-blind placebo trials. Not only do these studies have amazing health benefits, not one has shown any negative side effects. I use the red light face mask for 10 to 20 minutes each day. It's super lightweight on the face and it doesn't get so hot. I'm able to use it while watching TV or doing chores around the house. The 1-year warranty and sleek design and zero EMF radiation have me feeling great. It's nice and easy to use while watching TV, cooking a meal, putting the kids to bed, etc. Since using the red light face mask from Bond Charge, I have seen a notable difference in the fine lines and wrinkles on my face. I have a younger looking skin, less breakouts, and my skin is glowing. Bond Charge ships worldwide in rapid time and is trusted by leading health professionals worldwide. Their customer service is great with easy returns and exchanges. Plus, they have a 12-month warranty on all red light therapy devices. Bond Charge also has other amazing products such as low blue light bulbs, blue light glasses, EMF protection products, infrared sauna blankets, and 100% blackout sleep masks, all backed by science. Bond Charge products are all HSA, FSA eligible, giving you tax-free savings of up to 40%. So go to bondcharge.com and use our coupon code MIDAS to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com and use coupon code MIDAS, MEIDAS, to save 15%. Thanks, Bond Charge.
Let's go. Shout out Super Beats. Shout out Bond Charge. I was FaceTiming with Ben the other day, Brett, and he had the Bond Charge. He had the light mask on. He was loving it. He says nothing but good things about it. So definitely check that out. Use the code MIDAS. Use the hyperlinks. Super Beats, fantastic too. I love those chews. They're good. Definitely hit those up as well. I feel better taking them, so I'm sure you will too. Links in the description of the audio and the YouTube. Use our codes and let's do this dang thing. Brett, real quick, before we move on, I just have a quick question for you. So it's like Vice President Harris has had President Biden's back, through this entire ordeal, right? These last couple weeks, days or whatnot. But like former President Trump, Donald Trump, Brett, where's his former vice president? He's not.
Where's his vice president?
Why isn't the media asking where Trump's former vice president is? Because it could it be the fact that
Jordy, I think he just does. I just think he doesn't feel like hanging, with Trump, hanging out with Trump.
Yeah, hanging out. Of course, yeah, hanging out with Trump anymore because
I don't know what
I think there's some bad blood between the two these days.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand your reaction, but we can move past it. I want to give a huge shout out to thanks to our sponsors, and I want to see Ben doesn't let us make jokes like that. So
no, he doesn't.
But I gotta say, I'm not seeing as many hashtag free Bens as we see free Jordys. When you're not here. I'm just saying. Shout out to our great sponsors. I want to give a huge shout out to the team behind the scenes here at Midas who makes this all possible. And I want to give a huge shout out to the moderators. We obviously have a big subscriber base and we are marching to 3 million. It is not an easy task whatsoever to moderate these live chat feeds. So I want to give a huge thank you to the moderators who are putting in their time, because that allows us to focus on the very important stuff of telling people about the pressing issues of the day and of the era. And perhaps one of the most important issues right now that I think we all need to be focused on is Project 2025. Now, Donald Trump he's trying to distance himself from Project 2025. He says he doesn't know anything about it or anyone involved, except it's run by Trump people, like mostly Trump people. They literally say that their goals are to, quote, and I'm quoting, institutionalize Trumpism. That's literally what they say. And here are just a few of the Trump officials that are behind Project 2025. Ben Carson, Ken Cuccinelli, Peter Navarro, Russ Voigt, John McEntee, Gene Hamilton, Ed Corrigan, Wesley Denton, Troop Hemingway, Brooke Rollins, James Shirk, Mark Meadows, Andrew Closter, the director of Project 2025, Paul Dans, also worked for Trump as a top aide, and Trump's top aides also appear in the Project 2025 videos about implementing Project 2025. And here are the receipts. We found them. They may have had these videos unlisted on their YouTube channel, but we found them. You see on the left, Stephen Miller, Project 2025 Presidential Administration Academy. That's the video on the Heritage Foundation's page that he participated in. And then we also see a part of the video, Carolyn Levitt, who is Donald Trump's press secretary. So Donald Trump is trying to coffee boy Project 2025. I don't know anything about it. I don't know any of the people. It's just the coffee boy. Well, your people are literally all over it. And this thing that you call Agenda 47 is Project 2025 with another name. So do not try to gaslight us. We know. And let me tell you just a few of the things. We have a little graphic to sum up some of the things that is going on with Project 2025. It's basically a Trumpian wish list of all the most horrible things you know about Donald Trump that they want to implement if they get the power. So here's a brief list. They want to purge the government of thousands of civil servants and replace them with unqualified far-right MAGA loyalists. They want to send the Justice Department to prosecute Trump's political enemies, pardon violent January 6th criminal insurrectionists, pack the Supreme Court and lower courts with MAGA extremists, enact a national abortion ban, restrict IVF access, reduce the FDA's approval of abortion medication, remove mentions of abortion and reproductive health through agency materials, reverse President Biden's student debt forgiveness, reinstate student debt on millions of Americans, give tax handouts to the ultra wealthy and big corporations, eliminate union and worker protections, cut Social Security, raise retirement age, cut and privatize Medicare, rip away healthcare from tens of millions of Americans, remove protections from pre-existing conditions, repeal President Biden's law that allows Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices, abolish the Department of Education, implement and expand book bans, go after marriage equality, repeal anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ plus students, reinstate Trump's transgender military ban and expel transgender service members, end climate protection and gut clean energy programs, withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, President Biden's landmark climate law, replace climate advisors with fossil fuel lobbyists, deregulate big corporations and the oil industry, send the U.S. military after anti-Trump protests, put immigrants in mass detention camps, rip immigrant children from the arms of their mothers, reinstate and expand Trump's Muslim ban, and much more. Like I said, that is just a brief overview of Project 2025. And by the way, many of those same things are in Agenda 47 that they try to position as something that's different. It is truly not different. And something I also want to focus on with Project 2025 as Trump tries to deny it is the effect that Project 2025 and their plans will have on the climate. Now, we spoke briefly about, in that list, we mentioned a few of their plans to roll back all the progress that Biden has made on the climate. And President Biden doesn't get nearly enough credit that he is like the single most effective president. He's enacted the most comprehensive environmental agenda out of any president quite literally in history through the various bills. Like there's never been a president that has made more progress on this issue than Biden. And Trump, Project 2025, they want to take all those gains. They want to roll it all back. And we know by now, we see the news about these hurricanes and these storms and everything, climate change. There's increased incidents of extreme weather across the country. I mean, I don't think anybody could at least deny that we're experiencing a lot more extreme weather now than we used to. But here's the thing that you need to look out for. And when we started digging into this research, like it was quite horrifying to me that, you know, there are all these plans that President Biden has enacted and other plans that he wants to enact to protect the environment, to slow down this extreme weather, to actually make a big difference in the climate space. And then there's all this big money and all these groups out there that are trying to do everything possible to reverse that progress. And it's not only that they're doing that, because we know that they do that, right? But the nefarious ways in which they are doing that. There are a bunch of these groups that many of them are tied to Trump that create names. They pose as if they are grassroots organizations fighting to protect the climate, when they are actually being funded by big oil, big gas, in order to give everything possible to big gas by making people afraid of clean energy alternatives. There's so much money being poured into this. And I'll give you an example. Let me just read for a second from some of the research we compiled. So a dozen of groups across the country, many purporting to be grassroots organizations, are linked to the fossil fuel industry. Nonprofits tied to oil and gas and other fossil fuel interests gave at least $19 million, 389,552 to groups opposing clean energy initiatives nationwide. Over 70% came from the Charles Koch Foundation and the Charles Koch Institute, which funneled $14.3 million to these groups. Oil companies, including Phillips 66, ConocoPhillips, and Occidental Petroleum, and other corporations tied to fossil fuels, gave at least around $1.4 million to groups that opposed clean energy. And here's where it gets more devious. I want you to listen to the names of these organizations. They purport to be like environmental organizations. They're actually doing the opposite. So beyond the funding, there are links to these specific groups and corporate polluters. There are these anti-wind groups. You know, Trump always talks about wind. What happens if it stops? The wind stops. You're going to lose our electricity. It's all tied together, right? They have these two coalitions, the Save Right Whales Coalition and the American Coalition for Ocean Protection. The Save Right Whales Coalition was co-founded by Lisa Lenoz, a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which is a fossil fuel think tank. She was also a member of the Advisory Council for the Institute of Energy Research, a close ally of the Trump administration that has received millions from the Koch network and the oil and gas industry. The American Coalition for Ocean Protection is a project of the Cesar Rodney Institute, which has received funding from the American fuel and petrochemical manufacturers and is a member of the State Policy Network and receives money from Koch network foundations. Are you seeing a pattern here? Are you seeing their strategies? The coalition founder, David T. Stevenson, was also a policy director at the Cesar Rodney Institute. He was a Trump advisor who previously worked at DuPont, a chemical company that is a member of the American fuel and petrochemical manufacturers. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. I could go way more in depth, but I think you get the point. And a lot of these groups are connected to Trump, like the American Coalition for Ocean Protection. It's an umbrella organization for several of these anti-wind groups, was founded by a former Trump advisor. Wind Action, a New Hampshire-based anti-wind group, was led by that Lisa Lenoz, who is a close ally of the Trump administration. And I could go on and on and on and on. Affordable Energy for New Jersey, a product of the Consumer Energy Alliance, an oil and gas front group led by Michael Whatley. Who's Michael Whatley? A former oil lobbyist who was literally the co-chair of the RNC along with Laura Trump. Something else to note in how this connects to Project 2025, 55 of the groups involved in Project 2025 have received more than $50 million from the oil and gas industry and its allies since 2020. So when you see this pushback and you're like, how could Trump be making such ridiculous statement? Wind? Look, what are you talking about? It's because of all the money behind it. That is why. And President Biden, quite frankly, scares these big money interests. He scares the big money interests. He scares the big money interest in oil and gas. And that's why there is such a forceful pushback to him on everything he does. That's why throughout his whole presidency, there's been such a pushback, especially from kind of media elite types, big money types, right? With corporate billionaires funding them. And that's why it's such an honor to me, you know, that we're able to fund this network, quite frankly, on the grassroots level. Like there's really quite literally nothing like it. And it's certainly not the greatest business model in the world, as we joke around, but this is funded by you guys doing the emojis in the chat, right? Doing the super chats on YouTube. It's funded, of course, in part by our great pro-democracy sponsors. It's funded by the folks who go on Patreon and subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/MeidasTouch and become members. That's how we survive. That's how we thrive. And that's what allows us to always be independent to ourselves and not have anything dictated to us by these outside interests. So thank you for keeping that all possible. Another story that is
real quick, Brett, I just wanted to emphasize that's some excellent research that you did there on climate. And I'm glad that we're talking about climate more on this show because it's crucial. It's vital for the future of not just our country, but frankly, the world, that we get this and we get this right as soon as possible. One of the things I hope to see, at least in the next debate, if it happens, is they got to talk about climate. Like I want to see Trump put on the ropes and just ask, do you believe in climate
Project
change, Donald
2025,
Trump?
like all.
Yeah, Project 2025. Like where do you stand on these core issues, and just let him speak, just let him defend these indefensible positions in which he holds. So I'm glad we're talking about climate on this podcast. And I see it in the chat right now. I know our viewers are glad that we're talking about it as well.
I agree, Jay. The stakes are just too high, and it's existential, literally, in the climate and for so many other reasons. I want to run down some other quick kind of accomplishments recently, some good news that we've seen. On Sunday, over 3 million people were screened at U.S. airports. That's a record for the TSA. Record travel. Americans are traveling and taking vacations right now at record numbers, which is often a pretty good indicator of how people are feeling about the economy and their own kind of personal situation. Travel this year is up 6%. July 4th gas prices hit their lowest level in 3 years. They now average nationally around $3.49, give or take. The June jobs numbers again exceeded expectations. It's like, how many times do we get to report on that? Like every month. 206,000 new jobs, bringing Biden's total new job total to 15.7 million new jobs. Jobs are far above pre-pandemic levels. They're far outpacing even the job growth from before the pandemic. And I wanted to highlight this story, which, out of their 200 plus stories on Biden and if he should drop out or not, the New York Times did highlight one story that is worth bringing to your attention here. And it's about America's left behind counties. And it's, of course, framed in the most New York Times-y way on the planet. But the information here is important. Here's what they said. A remarkable comeback is what the title was. Subheader. This is the kind of thing that we couldn't have even dreamed about 5 or 6 years ago, one expert said about the changes. And they said in a post, America's left behind counties have just notched their best 3-year stretch of job and business creation so far this century, and nobody saw it coming. Well, once again, going back to what Biden said, I think Biden saw it coming. I think that's why he implemented the policies, right? I think we saw it coming on the MeidasTouch network. I think these are kind of the things that we've been speaking about. So if so many things keep happening that nobody saw coming, then maybe, just maybe, like a little bit, be like, maybe we're not actually right about everything. That's all I'm saying. I'll read you a little bit of this as well. America's so-called left behind counties, the once great manufacturing centers and other distressed places that struggled mightily at the start of the century, have staged a remarkable comeback. In the last 3 years, they've added jobs and new businesses at their fastest pace since Bill Clinton was president. This turnaround has shocked experts. This is the kind of thing that we couldn't have even dreamed about 5 or 6 years ago, said John Lettieri, the president of the Economic Innovation Group, a think tank that studies economic distress in the U.S. His group is releasing a report that details the recovery of left behind counties. The Times continues, these counties span the nation, but are largely concentrated in the Southeast and Midwest. And they say in their newsletter, they'll explain how they defied recent trends, particularly a grim stretch under Donald Trump, to rebound so strongly from the pandemic recession. And he'll also show why that this will probably not help President Biden. Like, it's like literally how they finished that wrap up in the beginning. It's just so crazy. But good news for the people, good news for the economy, and that's what we're doing. And we got now, folks, about 120, a little less than 120 days till election day. It's real. It's on, right? And if anything, I hope that the last week or so has woken you up to the gravity of the situation, to the stakes of the situation. And I actually continue to feel quite optimistic. I'm optimistic when I look overseas and I see democracy winning. I'm optimistic when I see those grassroots supporters out there in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin rallying and understanding that this is about more than any one person and that they are in it to win it. And I think all of us need to remain optimistic in this fight for our democracy. I think it is absolutely essential. And remember that fascism thrives on demoralizing you, right? I mean, that's one of the big tenets of fascism. They want that 30% to win. They want that Le Pen 30%, right? They want to so demoralize the rest of us and so fracture the pro-democracy coalition so that they could win with a 30% of the vote. It's up to us to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? And so that involves us putting in the work. It involves us staying focused on the issues, not getting caught up in petty battles, and continuing to fight on and try to hang on to hope and optimism, because I have no doubt about the power of this community. And frankly, the power of this community in light of all this corporate media coverage that we have seen in the past week or so, it shows you why this community is so important, why you all are so important. And we thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining us today on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Remember to follow us on all of our various social media platforms at MeidasTouch. We're just about basically everywhere you are. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. You know it all. If you like our show, if you like the network, you could support us, but no pressure, of course. You could support us on patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. It really helps a lot. You could support our sponsors at the link below in the description. And Jordy, you got anything to add?
That's all I got, B. All I want to say is shout out to the Midas Mighty.
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well.